It's Monday, the 11th of January 2016. I'm Nita Newman and I'm interviewing Mr. Eric Reaney about his experience of Chance Brothers between the ages of 14 to 18 before the Second World War in 1939. So, Eric, where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Smethwick and I went to St Philip's School in High Park Road. And I left school at 14 and I went to work at Chance Brothers in the traffic office. I didn't actually go for the job in the traffic office. I went just to get a job, you know. When I went to the what you might call the resource, I think they call it the resource office now, employment office, they said they wanted somebody in the traffic office. And I went over to the traffic department and saw a man named Cyril. And Cyril wanted to make sure somehow that I wanted the job. You know, I thought he'd say, well, okay, I've got a job and you can start, you know. And he said, are you sure you want to work in this office? And I said to him, well, I think so. I said, why not, you know? And he said, well, I think I ought to tell you that the manager is very strict and you'll have to be into time and you'll have to really watch what you're doing now if you're prepared to accept that. He said, I've got no other queries and I could see from your school record and you could have the job. And the manager's name was Bill. And I met Bill. He was a very smart chap with a blue suit. And he made it clear from the start that I would be starting at 7:30 in the morning, prompt, and I would finish at 6. I would work Saturdays as well. Now this is an office job. So I started, but of course you didn't start and sit at a desk. When if you were a junior like that, you did all the odd jobs. And one of my jobs was to, the parcels from the Morning Post that the firm had received, was my job to load them onto a sack truck and take them round to the various departments, which was fine. And I used to enjoy that, obviously, because I mean I'd be out of the office for an hour or more and I'd go to the various departments and see all the things that were going on, the things they were making. And everything went well for a long time. And then one day, I was always terrified of it, and I didn't want to do anything where I would be on the carpet, you know. And one day, I got a load on the truck, and I lost control of the handles, and the truck went down some steps, and was broken. So I had to go and take this truck back to the office, and go in, and said to me, "You better go and see Mr. He wants to see you." And he said, "Now then, lad, what have you done with my truck?" But he wasn't too bad, and he said, "Well, you better go and arrange to get another one a bit sharpish, hadn't you?" So that was my first experience with Mr. But I soon learned that if you were even 5 minutes late, you were in trouble. But on the other hand, he was a very efficient man, and the traffic department functioned very efficiently. So then you got to the stage when you were a young, well, I wasn't very old, probably only 16, when they actually gave me a department to do the dispatching from. And I worked in the roll plate department. And they made window glass where the glass came straight out of the furnace, over rollers. It was compressed between rollers of molten glass. And they pressed a pattern into the glass. Or, in some cases, they had a wire mesh coming across, so they pressed the wire mesh into the glass, industrial glass, for factory windows. And the wire mesh was in, obviously, to prevent people breaking in and so on. And because I joined in 1938, the war had just started, they were very busy then making these glass windows for the big army units that were going up all over the country, ready for the war. And so they were doing very well then on roll plate glass. And the other departments at that time, where I used to take the parcels round to, there was the lighthouse department, which was a great big department where they made all the lighthouse lenses, very complex. There was an optical department where they made glass for spectacles. They made the basic glass, which had got to be very pure, of course. The glass was stirred in great vats, and then they chopped it up into sections and polished it, and then sent it off to the spectacle makers. There was a globe department where they made light fittings, glass light fittings. There was a press glass department where they made things like fruit bowls, glasses, tumblers, and all sorts of crystal type glassware. And this was had a lot of cutting involved in it, because it had to cut all the patterns into the side of the glass. They had a glass that made stained glass, had a department making stained glass for church windows. They didn't make up the windows, they just made the basic glass, and people who made church windows bought the basic glass and then cut them into shapes. They had then they had the 7-storey. Now the 7-storey department was very interesting because it did quite a few things. On all the 7 stories there were different types of glassware. For instance, they made laboratory glassware, which is all retorts and so on. And the brand, I remember the brand name, it was called Hysil, Hysil. And they made slides for microscopes. And they also made some little, on another department, they made little tiny glass balls which were used in blood, studying blood and things like that. I don't know how they did it, but they did very well with those. And these were all made in the 7-storey. The 7-storey tended to do little things, whilst the rest of the firm did big glass things, And they also made, one of the most interesting things to me was, they also made window glass by hand, in the sense that whereas the roll plate glass came through the cylinders, they had a furnace, a separate furnace, where 2 men dipped a giant ladle into the furnace and then poured it out to make a sheet of glass. They poured it out over a flat platform to make window glass, and they got a better transparency than pressing it through rollers. If you compress glass through rollers, you get some sort of a pattern on it, even if you got more or less plain rollers. You never got a very good clear glass. So they made this, but this was really hard work. These men, they had big masks on because of the heat. And they had an enormous ladle, and they brought it out on a track and then tipped it out at the end. So that was really interesting, And then those were the main sort of types of glass, and the different departments. The lighthouse works itself was very interesting, because during the war, not only did they make lighthouse lenses, they also made lots of aircraft lights, aircraft landing round lights, and also aircraft beacons. And in the optical department, for the war effort, they made prisms for tanks that were going to be involved in the war, And I was there to the middle part of the war until I was called up for the Royal Navy in 1918. Not 1918, when I was 18. Sorry, when I was 18 years old, I was called up for the Royal Navy. But the interesting 4 years, I was at Chances there for 4 years, but it was always interesting because there was such a variety of work.
So how did it feel leaving Chances behind to go to the war?
Oh, well, it was a big... it was an exciting thing in a way, and a bit apprehensive if you're going off to the war, but I I mean, I love working there, you know. And one of the biggest things to me was when I was going, Mr. who I'd always sort of been up there, shook my hand and said, "I'm sorry to see you going, Eric, but when you've finished with the war, come back, because you'll always find you a job." I always remember that, you know. As it happens, I didn't go back, but that's by the way, you know. So yes, I really enjoyed working there. It was a very interesting firm, such a variety of work, you know. And are there any questions you want to ask me about that part of the work?
Well, yeah, because you're talking about the different departments that you went round. In terms of any privileges or perks, did you get any privileges or perks as part of your job as being at Chances?
Not really. It was very much a working environment. And when you were promoted, as you were when you were about 16, and you were promoted to actually doing the dispatching for the department, that was very busy. Because like whichever department you were in, you had to arrange transport, the rail transport, and there were carts in those days, not lorries. And the firm had, Transport itself had 9 lorries, and they also had various contractors. The window glass was packed in big wooden crates, and the other glass was packed according to how much, obviously got to be, all glass was fragile, so it was packed very carefully into different size crates. But the big window crates were enormous things, and you had to drop them onto the lorries and carts by crane. They had cranes in the middle of the workshop, and so on. And I think I remember when I was a young lad there, and there were 1 or 2 other young lads who worked in departments, and we used to meet up at lunchtime and go down the cellars. Underneath the where the furnaces were, there were cellars where they used to let molten glass down into. And it was nice and warm down there, so lunchtime we'd take our sandwiches and go and sit down in the cellar, and you could hear lots of squeaking because the cellars were full of rats. But they didn't worry us. In fact, we used to throw stones at them. And so that was exciting. Every dinner time we would go down there and take our sandwiches and our flask of tea. And, what's too boring sitting in the office, you know. And then, as I say, when you were an actual dispatcher, that was a pretty busy job because you were more or less getting the goods ready to be dispatched. And then you were seeing they were dispatched, and you've got to make sure they went to the right place, of course.
So, in terms of right places, where did you send the goods off to?
Well, in this country and abroad, all over the country. I mean, some types of glass, only Chances made, particularly the lighthouse glass. I mean, the lighthouse glass, they were a unique firm. They made lighthouses for all over the world, you see. And when I used to take the parcels, then I used to go to where they'd got the final lighthouses set up, you know. And so they were testing them, you know, and the lights would be flashing around. I mean, it was fantastic. Then they got the aircraft lights where, they'd got towers for the aircraft, for aerodromes and things, and landing lights along the landing path and so on, flight path. And they made all those, so that was a wonderful department, the Lighthouse Works. And that was it. And after the war, it was sold to a firm called Stone Chance, who just wanted to make the lighthouses. They bought the lighthouse as an department, as an entity, you know.
So when you were watching the lighthouses being tested, what kind
They had
of
a great big
environment?
shop. They had a great big shop with a high roof, you know, so they could extend over distance. And then they had some outside, of course, as well. They had some, you know, and then presumably they'd take them down to the actual site of the lighthouse, wherever it was. And once they knew it worked, the lights worked, and then they would obviously set them up and test them there on the actual lighthouse, you know. And they went all over the country, and they also went to other countries. I mean, as you say, you'll probably find out that if you research into the places abroad, lighthouses, you know, you'll find some very interesting stories there, I should imagine.
This is what we're looking for. We're looking for the stories from the lighthouses.
And when if I go on holiday to the seaside in this country, not so much abroad. I quite, and there's a lighthouse. I went to one, for instance, at Portland Bill, and there's other lighthouses where the lights. Yeah, I always look at the lenses to see if they were made by Chance Brothers, and of course most of them were.
Did you ever go to the Pavilion?
Oh, the Chance's Sports Pavilion.
Mm.
Yes, they had a sports field on Aldeby Road and a pavilion. And my brother-in-law was the cricket captain. My brother-in-law worked at Chance Brothers as well. He'd been in the Marines for a time during the war, but as the war came to the end, he went and got a job there, and he was the cricket captain. And his name was Bert. And so I used to go to the cricket pavilion and watch the team play, you know. And also, every year, they used to have a sports day. And you could take part in the sports, you know. Yeah. But that died out later on, the athletic side of it. But the cricket went on long after, you know, as long as Chance was going, they more or less had a cricket team, I think, you know, yeah. And I think they had a football team as well. I didn't tend to have anything to do with a football team then. But as far as I know, the cricket and football team went on for years, you know. Mm.
Did they ever?
And they had their own little fire brigade, because they used to have fires because of sometimes got overflow from the furnaces and things like that. And my brother-in-law Bert, he was also in charge of the fire brigade. He worked in the maintenance department at Chance Brothers, and he looked after the fire brigade, and also played for the cricket team. And they also competed with the other big fire brigades like Mitchells and Butlers and people like that in various competitions, you know, fire competitions. Yeah. Because most of the big factories who were in Swethican area and then in the Black Country area had fire brigades. Quite a few of them had their own personal fire brigades.
So, did you? I mean, you were in the transport department, and you were responsible for sending work all over the world. Did you have much to do with other departments like there's the
Yeah, I'd worked in the intervening time. I'd done short times. Well, I'm building up to looking after my own department. I went in the press class department, and I was the dispatcher for that. That was a smaller department, you see. Then I went into the roll plate afterwards, and I also, before I left Chances, I also did some work in the press class department, helping in the office there, doing the wages and all that. But that was just part of the general office work, you know. And the chap in charge of the press department was a chap called John, a very interesting character because he was well known in the local theatre world. And he ran a little theatre in Sutton Coldfield called, I think it was called the Highbury Theatre. But he was the director of the press class department. And at the time they were always trying new things. And I remember when they started to try to make mass-produce glass tumblers. And whereas before they'd made on small machines, then they got a big machine where the tumblers all went round, rotated round all day, you know, sort of thing. And they dropped the glass in the mould and it made it into a tumbler and pressed down so it made a tumbler and then rotated round, you know, and so on. So they were always trying to improve the glass, you know, what items they made and sort of live in the modern world, as it were. Mm.
So socially, did Chances provide any opportunities for socialising?
Yeah, they used to have various social events from time to time, dances and things like that. And during the war, of course, which is when I was there, at dinner times in the canteen, they used to have a works canteen and a staff canteen, and I was in the staff canteen. But even so, they used to get us all together and they'd have entertainment on the Music While You Work, it was called. Music While You Work, that's it. And during the morning over loudspeakers, for people in the workshops. They'd play music. They had an hour. It started at 10:30, and they had an hour of music played by bands from all over the country. All sorts of music while you work. And then lunchtime, they'd sometimes have artists in the canteen to entertain you.
So what was your favourite music at the time?
When I was a young bloke, I obviously liked pop music, And at that time, of course, Vera Lynn was one of the favourites. And others, I can't remember them all now. But of that period sort of thing, I used to like the pop music then, of course,
So in terms of at the time and clothing and the fashion, what did you like to wear?
That's right. Oh yes, I was a young chap, so I was quite happy to wear the latest gear, whatever it was, Yeah.
Did you have a favourite outfit
Well,
going out?
You tended to have a decent suit for Sundays. Your parents more or less wanted you to wear the suit on Sundays, but otherwise, well, you wore what you liked, really, You had to be. We didn't have a uniform at school, but you used to be expected to be respectably dressed. You know what I mean?
And at work, what kind of attire did you have to work?
I was an office worker, wasn't I? So I'd wear when I was in the office. I used to wear a suit, but when I was when I was a dispatcher, then you were free to wear what you like, really, keep yourself warm and so on. Or in the summer you could wear sports clothes and so on. In other words, it wasn't so strict if you're out in the works. But except, of course, in some parts of the works they had to wear protective clothing, working with glass and so on.
Do you think now that chances I hear that chances were very forward thinking?
Well, I think they were, yeah. I think they were a modern firm. I'd always considered them a modern firm, yeah.
I mean, you've been no stranger to hard work by the sounds of it, and after chances and going through the war, and even today, you've worked in communities. Could you tell me something about your community work now?
Well, through the church, I was always I came back. I'd been at the church in Windmill Lane, Smethwick, when I was a lad, called the Presbyterian Church, Smethwick Presbyterian Church, and then from there they knocked Windmill Lane down. They redeveloped Windmill Lane, so the church went, and I moved to the Methodist Church, and then I was a youth club leader at the Presbyterian Church, and then I was. When we moved to the Methodist Church, I was a youth club leader there, and so on. So I was a youth club leader for about. I came out of the Navy at 21, and I became a youth club leader more or less straight away. And I was, 30 or 40 years, I don't know exactly, over a good number of years, because I was a youth club leader of 4 different churches. Or no, 3 different churches, beg your pardon, Presbyterian, Regent Street Methodist and West Smethwick Methodist, yeah.
And that led to an MBE?
That's right. And first of all, I got an award from Sunwell Council as a senior volunteer one year. And I think that started me off with the council because somebody obviously recommended me for that. And then afterwards, I got to think about the MBE that was in. I got the MBE in 2006. And I think that was through the council.
How did that feel?
Oh, it was a great surprise, of course. It's funny how it happens. I'll tell you how it happened, in the sense that my sister at the time was getting older, and she was very ill, and she was in hospital. So I was going to the hospital, Sandwell Hospital, twice a day to see her, naturally. And so I didn't bother a lot with my mail, I'd just come in at night, I'd have some tea. I was working. I'd come in at night, have some tea and rush off up to the hospital and come back late. And so for days I think I didn't open the mail, and then I decided I'd better have a go at it. So I think one Saturday morning I sat down and I went through the mail and I came to this one envelope which said on the back, 10 Downing Street. So I thought, 10 Downing Street, what have I got to do with 10 Downing Street? And then you open it and it tells you that you have been nominated. It doesn't say who nominates you, it just tells you you've been nominated. And then it tells you not to tell anybody else about it, but to wait until the date, and then you get another letter at the beginning of the month before to say when you'll be going down and what you've got to wear and so on, and who you can take.
So you're also involved in the Red Cross?
Oh yeah, I've been in the Red Cross now for, this is my 57th year in the Red Cross. I joined in 1958, and at that time we helped in, mind you, this isn't about chances, is it?
No, but it's
anyway,
nice background.
And at that time we were part of Smethwick Ambulance Service as well, in the sense that nights, we used to do the night duties. The ambulance men, the ordinary ambulance men employed by Smethwick and Sandwell later on, they worked during the day, and we used to volunteer, Red Cross volunteers used to do it at night. And so that was very interesting. But then I went on, once when the unions came in, ambulance unions and the NHS, when the National Health Service came into the being, then obviously we dropped out of local authority work and just concentrated on Red Cross work. And I've been in, actually came out of the ambulance service and went into working at the Accident Hospital. I used to work in the casualty area with another member of the Red Cross in the Accident Hospital for a number of years. And I went on to work at City Hospital afterwards. But that was all as part of Red Cross work, you know. And this is my 57th year in Red Cross. Yeah.
And not only that, the food banks.
I help out at the local food bank, which is at Holders Institute Smethwick Food Bank.
How often do you go there?
I only go about twice a month.
Yeah.
2 afternoons a month, yeah.
I bet there's an awful lot of very appreciative people that they can, would want to thank everyone, everyone involved for helping out at the food bank, because it's a very, very useful and life-saving thing, a service that you're giving. So it's a wonderful thing that you're trying to help out in your community now.
Well, I represent our church on the food bank, you know what I mean? When it started, the food bank, a few years ago, they wrote to the various churches and said, would you like to nominate somebody if you want to help? And I went to the early meetings, and then they set up the food bank, and I was our church's representative, and I collect the food every week, or whenever it's there. And when I'm on duty, I take it all in, you know. And they store it, record the dates on it and everything, and then you interview people for the food, you know. And the people who come for the food, they don't just drift in, they have to get a voucher from social services or from the employment department or doctors, and they come with the vouchers and then you give them the food, you know. Very interesting job, very interesting.
So I'm going to go full circle, I'm going to go back to Chances
Yeah,
now.
yes, if you would.
But what I would like to ask you, in terms of being at Chances, what do you think your proudest achievement was?
Well, I don't know as I did anything special. I didn't win anything at Chances, so there was never any competitions or anything. The war was on, and everybody was doing the job, you know. And I joined the Home Guard for the time as well. That was when I was 17. I joined the Home Guard, and I had just over a year really in the Home Guard before I went to the forces. You know, I was in the Home Guard at Smethwick Drill Hall, which is Harry Mitchell's Centre now, but it used to be called Smethwick Drill Hall. So I was in the Home Guard for 12 months there. You know, that was really interesting.
Did any of your friends come with you from Chance?
No, I don't think they did. There were one or two there at Chance Brothers who I knew were in the Home Guard. I don't know whether there was any, because there was more than one Home Guard, you see. There was West Bromwich and everything as well. So and a lot of people who worked at Chances lived in West Bromwich. So I knew people at Chances who were in the Home Guard, but I can't remember any particular friends from there who were in the local one, you know, in Swedick one. Mm.
So overall, in terms of Chance Brothers,
But Chance Brothers had a lot to do with them. I mean, in the sense that all the people you see, apart from the Home Guard, there was the wardens, air raid wardens, and there was the people in the civil defence who ran the ambulances at that time. And a lot of those worked at Chances, of course. And there was a nurse at Chances, and she had, I think, things to do with training people for medical work, you know, because obviously every night there were air raids, and so there used to be a lot of, obviously from air raids you had a lot of injuries, and the wardens who were out on duty on the streets, they got injured as well, you know. So, like the aircraft air raid, and Chances, there's a particular remembrance of Chances. Chances were bombed, and a lot of the firm was destroyed. I mean, the roll plate glass, where they made the glass, where it came through the rollers, they had two departments, fortunately, and the one department was more or less obliterated, you know. I remember going in the morning, and the road through the firm was all covered with bricks and glass. And when I got to the roll plate department, all the roof had gone, and all the walls were down, and the machinery, you know. And I was in the other roll plate as it happened, and so one part of the firm was that part of the firm was able to keep going, you know. And there was a lot of the firm seriously damaged. The optical department was, I think, and I think there was some damage in the lighthouse works, and so on. So it was when they must have had the one raid where they targeted. I mean, Birmingham was a popular target, say, because there were so many factories dealing with the war effort, and Chances was definitely a big part of the war effort, where they made important things really, with all the aircraft stuff and lights and the optical glass, where they made things for tanks and things like that, you know. All that sort of thing was going on towards the war effort, you know.
How did that feel, walking through the debris to your works? How did you envisage things?
Well, you were shocked by it, and you wondered. Like, fortunately, our office was still going, the main office, and I was working up in the other roll plate department, and I had my desk in there, and that hadn't been damaged. I don't think it was damaged at all, the other one. Because, I mean, Chances was a big, well spread out firm, and they got a roll plate department at each side of the firm. The one was more or less on Oldby Road, and the other was down by the canal, right across the the other side of the works. And then right in the middle of the works, there was a tunnel under the railway line, because Swan Lane Station came through the factory. And there was a place called the Old Hall, as I remember it, and it had been a hall many years ago, and now it was offices, and also it was where the nursing station was, the medical centre, and we had a nurse, permanent nurse on duty, full time at Chance Brothers, and at times she had people helping her as well, So all the medical things went to the nurse,
Was anyone hurt during the bombing? Do you know of?
I don't know.
No.
Really, I wasn't really into that side of the thing then. A funny incident I can remember is I was walking through the roll plate one day, and I was looking for we had all different patterns of glass, and I was looking for a particular pieces of glass that I could send to one customer, and I was bending down by the glass, and I stepped back, and a piece of glass went in my backside. So I didn't want to go to the nurse because it was a lady nurse. So I knew that the man in the gatehouse was a first aid man. So I went and said, "Can I have a word?" And he said, "What's that, Eric?" And I said, "I've cut my backside on the glass." I said, "I don't want to go and see the nurse." He said, I'll do that for you. So he put some plasters on. That was a funny thing. I didn't want to go to the nurse. Yeah. So all those sort of things happened, you know. And you had your friends there, and it was a very friendly place to work at. You knew everybody, and if you wanted something for the house, like a new globe for your light, you could obviously get it cheaply at chances, or if you wanted some window glass or anything else like that, you could buy it cheaply, you see. And Christmas presents, you'd buy people perhaps some fruit glasses, you know, set of fruitware for somebody for a Christmas present, and you'd get it for very cheaply at chances, so things like that.
So there was a shop there?
Yeah, the shop here, Chance Brothers shop here. Yeah. And later on, after I left the firm, after the war, they started a department, which you may come across, called Fiesta Wear. And it was very distinctive because it pressed beautiful patterns into the glass. And they made, I've probably got one somewhere if I have a really good look around, where you could buy glasses where it had got, say, 80th birthday and all that with patterns in, as a matter of fact. That was very nice wear. Then that became a separate department, and then later on it became a separate firm. I think they dropped out of Chances and made their own Fiesta Wear.
Well, Eric, that was a very, very interesting and enlightening interview. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure everyone listening will really enjoy this. Thank you.